Okay, sorry about that. So yeah, this event has been rather challenging just because there's quite a bit of uncertainty with respect to how unstable we will get out ahead of this system. It is a very powerful system. Again, much of the center of the low is back. It's going to move across St. Louis and then on up to the Great Lakes, but there's a tremendous amount of wind energy with this system. All we need is just a little bit of moisture and some, low level warming, and the ingredients are there for severe weather, and that's kind of what we're looking for. But the degree of this severe weather and, the potential for damaging winds and tornadoes has been really up in the air with this system. So we'll do our best to kind of give you what we're thinking at this point. There have been some pretty significant changes that we'll get into from the Storm Prediction Center as far as the outlooks. The most updated outlook that they just sent out is very different than what everybody saw this morning. But we want to make sure everybody kind of continues to take this seriously and not lower your guard to a point where you're like, nothing's going to happen, because there certainly are ingredients there in place to support severe weather for tomorrow afternoon and evening. The differences from Tuesday's event, and the good news is that we're not expecting nearly as much rainfall. However, the grounds are really saturated from Tuesday still. So two things there. One, for the wind that's going to be coming in, even away from any storms that we see, the potential to see some more downed trees is there. Just for the wind, from the wind alone in the saturated grounds. The other thing is we still have some creeks, or at least streams, and some rivers that are in flood. And with the saturation of the ground, it's not going to take a whole lot more of rainfall to potentially increase or elevate that localized flash flood threat later tomorrow into tomorrow evening. So keep that in mind. And also the timing of this system, where everything kind of comes together and moves through, is going to be later in the day compared to what we saw on Tuesday. So we're looking more in a late morning, afternoon into early evening versus early in the day. So so that's kind of the main highlights, and I'll talk a little bit more to one more slide here, and then I'm gonna transition it over to Sam, who's going to talk a little bit more about the details. Right now, it's pretty quiet. You can see the satellite. We get some high-level clouds moving across parts of central Georgia. Our temperatures as of 12 o'clock were in the upper 40s and 50s, so fairly cool, and the dew points are in the 30s to low 40s, and that's a pretty cool dry air mass, pretty typical for January. So that I point this out because it's a good thing that we're not sitting in the low 70s right now, like we were maybe about a year ago at this time. Very different air mass in place. Again, the air mass is going to change pretty quickly tonight into tomorrow, but at least right now we're not sitting at unseasonably warm, wet, moist conditions. With that, I'm going to go to the next slide, and Sam's going to talk a little bit more to what is going to start happening as we head into tomorrow.
All right, thanks, Dave. Like Dave said, my name's Sam Marlowe. I'm a meteorologist here at FFC. Just kind of starting off with some simulated radar reflectivity, what we could expect going into tomorrow. This is the HRR model, the high resolution rapid refresh model. This is just to give you a general idea of what we could expect to see. First off, we're really looking to see two rounds of storms associated with this system. The first is going to be along that warm front moving into the northeast. You can kind of see that in eastern Georgia. Let me pull up the oops, sorry everybody. Let me pull up the laser pointer so that we can all so that I can show you exactly what I'm talking about. So these storms out here are along that warm front earlier on, kind of that late morning, mid-afternoon time frame. And then the second round is going to kind of follow along that cold front dry line feature, moving east from Atlanta. And that second round is really going to have the highest potential for severe storms. Anything that kind of develops along that line that we see, letting the cycle through, along this line here, anything that develops in the warm sector could have the potential to become severe, with the primary threats being those damaging winds, so winds greater than 60 miles per hour, or tornadoes. So the tornado aspect is highly contingent on where exactly the warm, moist air is near the surface, how far north that gets, and how far that spreads eastwards as well. And I'll cover that in the next few slides. So here's kind of a look at what timing we're expecting with this system. So kind of broken things up into two portions of Georgia. So we have the region west of I-75, and then the region east and north of I-75 and I-16. So that western region, really looking at the 12 to 6 p.m. time frame. And this time frame isn't necessarily just for the thunderstorms. We are going to have thunderstorms across the area ahead of this time. But this time frame is really looking at when you could see the peak severe threat, so those damaging winds and that tornado potential. So western area, the 12 to 6 p.m. time frame, and eastern region of Georgia is going to be the 2 to 8 p.m. Now, this does not mean that we couldn't see severe thunderstorms earlier in the day. This just means this is the time frame where we are looking for the highest potential for severe. So here on this slide, we have a reasonable worst case scenario of the progression of that warm, moist air that's going to really determine our severe threat. So the greatest risk area for severe will be kind of in the region that we have the bright yellow to purple, the bright yellows to purples. Sorry, everybody. See if I can get the start. Those bright yellows to purples, stretching really from LaGrange to. So I know earlier I said this was a reasonable worst case scenario. So what that means is that current models are showing that this is kind of the severe ingredients coming together for the area that's indicated in this animation. That also means there's a 90% chance that be more confined to the south, may even just be reduced across the. Let's keep moving on. So here's the most recent updated SPC outlook for central and north Georgia. So one thing you may notice is that there has been a reduction from the enhanced, which is a level 3 of 5, to a slight risk across the entire region. What you may also notice is that that slight risk has actually been extended northward as well. I want to make this really clear that just because we've downgraded the enhanced to a slight does not mean that we are completely free of any severe risk. It just means that we could see severe a little further north, and it may not be quite as widespread as initially expected. However, we still want you to be prepared for the worst case scenario or anything that might occur tomorrow. Here's another look at kind of our risk area. Just another way of looking at the kind of same figure that we just saw. The greatest risk for severe weather remains south of I-20 and I-85, along that corridor from LaGrange to Griffin to Jefferson and Washington. That has the best that's where we have our highest confidence, although confidence still remains low at this time overall for the system. One thing that you may be asking as well is why do we have the elevated extended for this? And this is more related to the wind threat rather than the tornado threat. So we are expecting we are seeing a higher confidence in damaging winds across the region. And I'll go into a little bit more why that is in the coming slides, but we are also seeing a lower confidence in the tornado threat over the coming days, just as I said, with that wherever that moisture decides to set up tomorrow as well. So here's kind of the reason that we're seeing that extended wind threat. So just kind of to sum it up, we've got just general winds are going to be elevated tomorrow. We do currently have a wind advisory and wind warning set to begin tomorrow morning and go through tomorrow night. You can see that on the left. So the wind advisory is for most of central and north Georgia. However, you may also notice that orange region across the far counties of north Georgia. We do have a high wind warning where we could see winds gusting 40 to 50 miles an hour, possibly higher at higher elevations as well. For that area in the wind advisory, we're expecting more of the 30 to 40 mile an hour wind gusts. Not quite as windy as the previous system this week. However, this is still fairly high for Georgia. And with the saturated conditions, that means trees are going to be more likely to come down. Here's just a look at what timing we can expect with this. So this is a blend of basically all of the models that we have, just to give you an idea of where we could see. So time frame starting early tomorrow morning. Highest winds across northwest Georgia and far north Georgia going through the evening are going to be 2,000 feet. So that's where we could really see those 50 plus mile an hour winds. And just to kind of reiterate, that saturated ground is going to make those trees more likely to come down. Out for those. All right, let's see if I can move through there. There we go. So I'll be asking as well is, well, how much precipitation are we going to get out of this? A lot of our areas have already seen flooding, elevated stream levels, rivers are up. On the left is our current forecast for tomorrow. Generally about 1/4 of an inch to an inch at most for the highest elevations. Precipitation is likely going to be fairly localized. So you're going to have pockets of higher amounts just because of the convective and thunderstorm nature of these. So the heavier thunderstorms are going to drop precipitation over a much smaller area than what we saw earlier this week. However, that does not mean we're free of any flooding threat. The Weather Prediction Center has kept us in a marginal risk across our northeast region, so including portions of Atlanta up through Helen, Gainesville, and Athens. So this means that we're at an elevated risk of receiving more rainfall than they really need. And so that could be a flood risk as well. Here's a look at exactly how much precipitation you could possibly get. So this is a reasonable maximum that you could see through Saturday morning. So this is a 1 in 10 chance of reaching or exceeding these values, 90% chance of staying below. The greatest amounts we're expecting are going to hang across the North Mountains, and then, like we said earlier, that flood threat is going to be elevated due to the already saturated conditions and elevated streams and rivers. So that those higher amounts across a more flood-prone area, on top of the already saturated conditions, we're going to need to keep a close eye on this. Otherwise, further south, those values are going to remain a bit lower. Kind of going to, basically south of I-20, you can expect total precipitation to be remain below 1/2 inch. So that basically concludes everything that we wanted to cover for tomorrow. Just to kind of go through exactly what we covered. This is the second round of storms that we've gotten this week. We want to make sure that we're still keeping an eye on this. Don't become complacent. There remains quite a bit of uncertainty with respect to how severe storms may get and where the risk exists at this time. However, the variables are in play to support both damaging winds and potentially a few tornadoes. And like we said earlier, the system is a bit different than the system we saw earlier this week. I'll pass it right back to Dave now.
Thanks, Sam. Good job. Yeah, this, so we kind of talked about earlier, still a potentially, big event. We are not, thankfully, we're not expecting, the threat for like strong tornadoes or winds, going over like 70, 80 miles per hour, but it still could, for local areas, still could be certainly a risk for severe weather. There's some questions about the non-convective winds. We do expect winds to kick up late tonight across the area into the morning hours. That I believe the high wind warning across far north Georgia and the wind advisory starts at tomorrow morning. Starts at 7 a.m. officially tomorrow. So shortly after sunrise, all the way through the day and through the evening hours tomorrow, outside of any shower and thunderstorm activity we get, expect the winds to gust at times between 25 and 40 miles per hour, and even higher across the higher elevations of far north Georgia. I'm going to go ahead and stop